Hey, in today's video, we're going to be explaining the very confusing plotline of the Ilias novel, Judgment of Corruption. I'm not even going to waste your time explaining, here we go. So, Aluka Ma Clockworker is sentenced to death for the accusation of being a witch. She bids a farewell to her husband, with the final wish that their child Galerian can turn around the corruption that lingered in their society. Galerian grows up to study law, and after witnessing a trial for witchcraft, he's still disappointed that every time the accused ends up guilty. He attends school with two names you should remember, Tony Osden and Loki Freezus. Loki and Galerian are both at the same goal, become a judge in the Darkstar Borough. Loki really wants to be the next director. Galerian, though young, is absolutely crushing his studies. Sometime later, he is selected to judge a trial for the first time. This first trial is a witchcraft trial as all the rest. The accused is by the name of Keosudo. Not to be confused with Keosudo, of course. To literally everyone's surprise, Galerian's verdict was that she was innocent. This was the first witch trial to ever have such an outcome. Why was this? Well, it was because Galerian saw the resemblance of his mother in this person and could not bring himself to have her killed. The current director of the borough, Hanma, lets him off easy with but a suspension. Galerian later meets Bruno, one of Loki's slaves. Loki doesn't seem to care much, and ushers him to hurry up so the three can go somewhere. But Galerian notices how much it was snowing, though Loki seems to think it won't be a problem, and informs them that they are hunting. Then, Loki began to shoot at him. Galerian was freezing, running through a forest in the snow, while Loki literally chases him with a gun. He runs, until he can't run any longer, and then he gets shot. Though, to the reader, it is revealed Loki is not the one who shot him. It was Shiro. Loki and Bruno left Galerian's body to Shiro in the end. Did you really think that Galerian would die that fast? Of course not. He wakes up, and the members of Organization PN tell him to plan to get rid of Loki because of many grudges against him and the Freezus conglomerate, which is his family. Bruno, Hel, Jacko, Shiro, Postman, a tiger named Feng Li, and the owner, surprisingly the very person he spared, Keo. Though she doesn't want to be called that any longer, and instead wants to be called Ma. Does that name sound familiar to you? Loki's girlfriend, Mira, later meets with Galerian and reveals that Loki's family likes to shoot people for fun. Mira's brother has an adopted brother, Jorm, who is also a murderer, and they need to get him out of execution that was in a few days. Some other things happened, and then Bruno told Galerian how Loki killed his whole family. Fun, right? Loki is given 30-ish years of prison time, and in the time it took, his family basically said they don't like him anymore, and Galerian decided to get into a relationship with Mira out of spite. He, of course, later somewhat regrets that decision. Loki absolutely lost it. He was given a gun in a package, but ultimately decided not to shoot himself after thinking about the idea. Unfortunately for him, and fortunately for the reader, Shiro shoots him through the window, but doesn't get in trouble since they thought he killed himself. Galerian struggles with Mira. They have a shitty relationship because he knows he didn't care about her as much as he cared about getting that revenge on Loki. He really only cared about his daughter, Michelle. Galerian and Ma get close. Too close. Far too close. On Galerian's 20th birthday, he gets drunk for the first time because it was his first time drinking. Ma is the absolute scum of the earth, decides to take him home, and started an affair, and it went on for half a year. Ma disappears after that. You know why? She's pregnant. Bruno, being the only stable one, confronts her, because he's the only one that knows. Ma is that same Aluka Ma Clockworker. She's an evil sorcerer. She comes back and fucks her son after pretending to just admire his mother and makes up something about getting plastic surgery to look like her or something. That's really confusing. Not only that, Judge Hanma is actually Aluka's apprentice. So he has the world police break into the borough. He freezes them all with ice, and then he leaves and nobody sees him again. This allows Galerian to rise the ranks and finally become the director of the USC Darkstar Borough. Well, Ma had the child. The child she named Nemesis. Nemesis Pseudo. Nemesis ends up being raised by Hanma in some place I forgot where. But she and a group of people, and a group named Zeus, had to kill someone who was on a boat. Now, the plan originally failed, but Nemesis earlier accidentally made a deal with Seth Twilight, Demon of Wrath, in the form of an octopus. She uses his powers to take down the ship that the person was on. And oh so poor and innocent Nemesis just started a chain reaction that would ruin her own life. On that boat was Galarian's wife and daughter. Galarian absolutely loses it after this. He has PN try to investigate, so they do it privately. And they go to the woods that were, also alive, but I don't have time to dive into that whole thing. They later find a doll that looks a suspicious amount like Michelle, Galarian's daughter. It's the Clockworker's doll, a vessel of sin. After Ma receives it, she decides to do something diabolical. Give it to Galarian, and use it as a replacement for Michelle. Ma goes to Galarian's house. She explains this. If you collect all the vessels of deadly sin, you can grant any wish. Though this is not true, and the only wish that would be granted is Ma's scheme, Galarian is so desperate for Michelle that he agrees when Ma tells him to contract the demon in the Marlin Spoon, the vessel of greed. It's also out of Moonlight, by the way. Soon later, Bruno goes to Galarian's house and talks to him because he thinks he's finally found the guy who was behind the boat's incident. But he quickly believes that Galarian has finally lost his mind. Galarian, with the Clockworker's doll, begins to believe that this doll is Michelle. He talks to it and it does not respond. But this illusion is only a result of his demon contract with Adam. Galarian was of course not actually talking to Michelle, but some other soul out there. And he was the only one who could hear it. The guy believed to be behind the incident was Bindi Friezus. Of course, everyone already knew he would be declared guilty, but Galarian declared him innocent, and that was because of the bribes. He started taking all kinds of bribes. That same Jorm killed a bunch of Zeus members soon after, though. Galarian keeps taking bribes to keep collecting the vessels of sin. Nios and Gammon have the Venom Sword of Lust. They frankly refuse to give it to him, even with the large sum of money offered. Instead, Galarian gets the glass of Conchita, gluttony, after literally ruining a restaurant business. Later, Lich and Eater, two dudes who are real mad that he stole the glass, show up at his house, but eventually end up working for him. Ma finally finished the theater, and she takes the vessels to the theater, except for the spoon. Tony Austin, yes, Galarian's friend from school, became a general. He shoots up a town, and it was a whole disaster. Everyone was aware of the situation. Galarian. He decides that he should take bribes for this case. Yeah, because everyone being aware of Tony's guilt is definitely an intelligent case to do that on. A civil war starts because everyone starts to see how corrupted the Boro is. Galarian escapes an attack on the Boro, but goes back to his home. The large crowd of people set his house on fire. Adam Moonlight appears in front of him, appearing as Galarian. He tells him the doll isn't Michelle, but Eve. That was also wrong. He sees that and cuts the contact with Galarian. Nemesis had already dealt with Tony. She had the gun, she had the golden bullet, which was the only way to kill him since he had contracted a demon, but she also had the need for revenge. Galarian believes he dies, but he hadn't just yet. Nemesis was the one before him. Nemesis offered to spare him if he gave up the fortune he stole from the people, but he refused. Galarian held the doll with him as he deliriously gave final words to the doll. Nemesis shoots him with the golden bullet. He has a brief conversation with the narrator, which is a bat, and that is it. That is the very cut-up, summarized explanation of Judgment of Corruption, my personal favorite of the Uvilius books. But if you haven't read it yet, I really would recommend it, because it's a really fun read, and the story is really interesting. Of course, do be aware that there are probably mistakes in my summary, because I definitely skipped over certain details, and this is not enough to give you the information to be an expert at all. But thank you for watching, and yeah.